Hello, everyone. Happy Halloween. Welcome. Today, I am going to be making a video about spirits and cemeteries, especially because we're in Halloween season. And I know it's something that a lot of people like to do, going and checking out cemeteries. I know also people will go and have picnics in them and read books. And I just thought that I would make a video that's kind of, offering some suggestions about that and commentary. I know that this video is going to be quite different than my other numerology and astrology videos. And so if this isn't your thing, you can skip this video and I'll be back soon with more content that focuses just on the numerology and astrology. But if you're interested in learning about spirits and graveyards and cemeteries, then stick around and watch this because I think you'll find it interesting. Welcome. My name is Brooke. I'm a Vedic Numerologist and Astrologer, but I used to be a shamanic healer as well as an end-of-life doula. And so that involved me sitting with people as they were dying and helping them and their families and being there. And so I thought I would make this video because I feel like I have, something to perhaps offer and talk about. And so I wanted to say that because in no way am I, telling people not to go into cemeteries and graveyards or that I'm not sitting on a soapbox and judging anyone, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I just wanted to offer some suggestions for when you do that. I used to go into cemeteries all the time when I was young because I know, they're very interesting to walk around and learn about the history of a place. And I think it's a way to find solace for people as well as some of the social media channels. People will be going and having a picnic in the cemetery. And it seems very innocuous. I actually have my moon in a nakshatra, 10 points if you can guess it. It deals heavily with the occult and death. And so that's something that is always on my mind. And so I would no way, judge anyone, but these are just kind of the things I thought you should remember. So when we go into cemeteries, it's always really important to announce your intention because, again, there can be disembodied spirits or entities, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but you always want to announce your intentions. And so one thing you can do when you're going in is now again, you have to be obviously 21 because this does involve alcohol, and you most likely need to be on private property because open containers are not allowed, right, in many towns and townships to have an open container. But what you do is you open just a small bottle of bourbon and pour it into the ground for Dr. Death. It's in honor of him and to appease him. And you're stating your intentions at the same time. Now, obviously, if you're under 21 or you're not in a place where you can, have an open container, then just announce your intentions and maybe bring an offering like lemonade, just at a minimum, your intentions as to why you're going in. The reason that you want to do this is because when you go into a cemetery and you're just kind of wandering around to check things out, you're putting out the energy that you're searching, even if it's just to look at gravestones. So when you're even doing something like that or going in and having a picnic, you're again putting out the intention that you're searching for something. And so if there are spirits that are searching for something themselves, then there's going to be that connection, right? That magnet. And you don't want a spirit that is searching for something to come to you, right? And so that's the main reason. Now, I will say it's very different if you're going in for Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, right? Or you are going for a funeral or to visit a loved one. That is quite different because the energy is put out that you're going there for a specific purpose. It's always best to announce your intentions before going in, even if you're not leaving something for Dr. Death. You're just announcing your intentions. I'm going in to visit this family member, and you go in. And you don't need to be concerned because the energy is such that you're going in to do something specific. I'm talking about if you're going in and just wandering around and looking. It's most important to announce your intentions before entering the cemetery because, again, you don't want to attract something that's also searching. And then the other thing is is that when you leave the cemetery, always make sure that you walk backwards. Obviously, if you're in, a difficult health condition, don't do that, right? You don't want to hurt yourself. But even if you're just walking backwards and kind of looking over your shoulder to make sure you don't trip or hurt yourself, you just want to walk backwards. You don't want your back facing the cemetery. You don't want to have, basically a Klingon leave with you, right? And this isn't something that is horrible, but sometimes, especially for people that have their moon or their ascendant in one of the water signs, like Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, especially in Pisces, right? So Purva Bhadrapada on the Pisces side, Uttara Bhadrapada and Revati. I have found that Revati as well as Purva Bhadrapada nakshatra can kind of attract, or they're very more aware of other entities and other dimensions. And so you don't want something walking out with you, because at a minimum, you don't want to feel sick or just, not feel great. You just don't want the energy of that spirit coming out with you. Disembodied souls that haven't moved on to another dimension are not going to be very strong and powerful, right? Usually, because otherwise they would have been able to move on. But that's just something to remember. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention, I don't know if you've had this happen. Sometimes I will walk by something. I've had this happen at cemeteries, but so what you do, if you feel the bad energy or you feel like something's attached to you, just pull it off of you. It's really simple. Just pull it off of your body and say, you're not wanted, you can go now. And just keep doing it. You can pull, right here, just pull it off. You're not wanted, you go now. And that usually, I've always had that solve a problem. Another thing is you can kind of, do this and throw the energy off if it feels a little heavier, and you can do this. And so, in regards to the spirits, we are living, and this is per shamanic healing, but we are living here in the middle world. And when someone moves on, right, they die, they either go to the upper world or the lower world, again, per shamanic healing. And both of them are good. They're just different places. So as I mentioned, we are living in the middle world. It is ordinary reality. That's what it's called, ordinary reality. And after a person dies, if their soul is not able to either move on to the upper world or the lower world, they stay stuck in the middle world. But they are not a part of ordinary reality. They are a part of non-ordinary reality. And what is really interesting is that non-ordinary reality is not necessarily a peaceful place. It's very chaotic. There is a lot of energy. There are a lot of spirits. And these don't just have to always be the spirits of people that have died and not been able to move on. There's just a lot going on within non-ordinary reality. But ironically, it is also the place where there is shamanic healing that takes place, because for a shamanic healer to be able to heal someone, they have to contact the soul of the physical person that they're actually healing. They have to contact their soul to get permission for the healing to be done, but all of the healing is done through non-ordinary reality while the shamanic healer is actually physically within the middle world of ordinary reality. And so what's really interesting is that people that see ghosts, they are able to, the veil is kind of lifted for them, and they are able to see into the world of non-ordinary reality, right? It's still the middle world because there's things that are happening here, but it's the non-ordinary reality side. And so again, people that can see ghosts or kind of feel the energies very strongly of a presence that's not actually physically there. It's because they have certain configurations in their numerological Vedic grid as well as their birth chart. They can also sometimes see things because of a transit that is going on, or they are running a certain dasha that is allowing them to see this, that's in conjunction with planetary aspects that they have. Dashas, if you don't know, are planetary time periods periods that a person runs, and we use them within Vedic astrology to make predictions. People can also see ghosts because if it's not actually happening in the physical middle world of ordinary reality, sometimes I believe that certain spirits or entities have the power to kind of transcend the non-ordinary reality and make things happen within the middle world ordinary reality. And then also, I think that there are certain times where the two worlds kind of intersect, because remember, non-ordinary reality is just a layer within the middle world. And so I just wanted to explain that a little bit further with, the middle world, the upper world, the lower world, that it's concepts within shamanic healing and just something to be aware of. And so if you were to encounter some sort of a spirit or entity at a cemetery, you're coming into contact with them while both of you and the spirit are in the middle world. They're different layers. So you're in ordinary reality and the spirit is in non-ordinary reality. And so let's talk for a second about why there are spirits in our dimension and they haven't moved on. So there's a couple of reasons. One of them is they had a traumatic death, right? It was so traumatic or so surprising that they don't know they have died. In some cases, they know they've died, but it was so traumatic and their energy is so low, they are not able to move on. And so that's one reason. Another reason is that people have died, but they are wanting to stay. Their spirits are wanting to stay in this middle world to watch over their loved ones until their loved ones have moved on. And so they stay around for that. And they usually don't cause any problems because they're just watching over someone specifically, right? So they have that energy of knowing what they're doing. And so they're not going to come towards you, right? But when you have an energy, like I said, of going into a cemetery, of just wandering, then you're going to connect with wandering spirits, but you're not going to connect usually with spirits that have an intention of being there. And then another reason that spirits can stay is they know that they've died, but for some reason, they're very attached to this material world still. And so there can be a difference between not realizing that you have died and then knowing you've died, but still staying in, the material world, the middle world, if you will. And so that can create problems because, being attached to the material world for a spirit is right. No good is going to come of that. They're very much attached. And that is why oftentimes we associate the planet Rahu, the north node of the moon, with ghosts, because Rahu is a very materialistic planet, right? It is very spiritual. It gets us to, spirituality by giving us all of our desires and, just everything that we are craving in life. We get those things through Rahu. And so it's taking us to spirituality by giving us the material things, where Ketu, takes away the material and gets us to the spiritual that way. So it's almost in my mind, a little more effective to have things of Ketu come in, right? And take things, because then we have to, get to the spirituality quicker. And Rahu is more of that like slow burn. But going back to the spirits, they're associated with Rahu because they're still very much attached to the material. They haven't moved on. And so, again, this can be from things that happen to them in life. They know they've died. They don't have the energy to move on, or they're just heavily attached to the material, in which case you don't want to be interacting in a cemetery with an entity that's still attached to the material world, right? Like there's a very much deeper story to that. And so it's just something to be aware of. And you can usually feel these things, right? And it's, again, just pulling off that energy, I have found, is the most effective thing to do. And then finally, there are certain people, obviously, that are going to be more, prone to this. I have found that people that have, and again, this is per the sidereal Vedic system, but having, and there's many things that can contribute to this, but I have found the main ones are moon in the 12th house. Even if it's exalted in Taurus, it allows you to see other dimensions. Moon in the 8th house, especially moon ascendant in one of the water signs, especially Purva Bhadrapada, Revati. They're, being born through numerology on certain dates can cause this destiny number 4 with other configurations in your numerology and birth chart, as well as being born on the 31st, which, right, ironically is Halloween. The 31st of Halloween, 3 plus 1 is 4. And so just be aware of this. I just think that, and I've actually quit going into cemeteries because, I lived in New England for a little while. I lived in a pretty small town, but there were 2 cemeteries in my town of like not that many people. And one of the cemeteries had filled up with a lot of people from the Civil War as well as the American Revolution. And so after going in those, that's kind of when I made the decision to stop going into cemeteries, just because I was very aware of spirits and entities that were there. And so again, there's no judgment at all, because I think they are fascinating places. And I think death is something that our culture, especially in the West, I'm in the US, and especially in the West, we are not comfortable, most of us, talking about death. Like, it's because of where my moon is placed. I have always spoken about death since I was a little girl. My mom told me that I was talking about death at 3 and not, it was something I always talked about, even though my family was never comfortable with it. But in our culture, we don't talk about it. And I don't think that you can fully appreciate life unless you talk about death and don't see it as something fearful, especially in the US, because we're so used to putting old people away in the nursing homes. Whereas I know in other cultures, the dying stay in the home, and young kids help care for, their grandparents that are dying. So death isn't taboo like it is in the US. And so, sorry, I went off on a tangent, but that's just why I thought I would make the video about going into cemeteries. I'm not at all trying to say be afraid of cemeteries. I'm just trying to say they are like these hotspots. They're like these Wi-Fi hotspots of the spiritual realm for people to come, because for souls to come, because some souls actually stay with their bodies because leaving the body is too difficult, right? That's how attached a soul can be to the body. And so it's just best to be aware, because then, right, when you prepare and you're aware, then things don't happen. And so I hope that this video was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions, or if you've experienced paranormal or very interesting things, near cemeteries or graveyards, and what your thoughts are. So thank you so much for watching, friends. I wish you all the best, and I hope you have a happy Halloween. Talk to you soon. Bye.